Love like blood. She remembers blood, a fine mist which goes deep into her lungs, over her skin and through the air. She remembers a desert at dusk, the sky indigo blue and the fire bright, so bright that she can see everything. Near the fire in the night, all she knows is chaos wrapped in crimson. All is death and nightmare with a single solitary dancer who smiles cruelly as he moves. He is power and darkness. He is man and beast, silver coin eyes in that face, those claws, and the agony of loss. Time stretches wide, seconds like vast aeons swallow up her world. Vince is dead, his mother, his brother, and her small son ripped apart and gushing as it moves. She is screaming, a howl of agony beyond words, primal and wordless. Still he moves faster than air, faster than she could ever be. Blood drips from her face as she grunts, running with her lungs on fire, and her last remaining hope wrapped in her arms. Lungs starved for air, heart leaping in her chest and her feet like pinions pushing her across the desert, she moves. It will never be enough. She will always fail. He is the wind, feathers and strange sounds wrapped around her as she moves on, terrible laughter mocking her in the full bright light of the moon. He doesn't humor her long. The bundle slips from her arms and the blanket falls away. He smiles, bright white daggers in the moonlight, and he darts away. Her daughter hangs high in his fist, blood-tipped claws held close to her screaming face, already cutting into her soft flesh. She looks up from where she lies on the ground and pleads, "No, no, I'll do anything." Silver coin eyes in that face looking back at her, white daggers tied in a smile that mocks her. The claws begin to cut deeper, and she screams, "Anything! Take me, take whatever you want, but let her live." Still the baby cries and her blood slips down over the claws, motionless, waiting. Hope rises from the ashes of her life, and she stands walking over to reach out and try to touch her child. He shakes his head no, slow and malicious. Anything. Her daughter, wailing above her, small drops of her blood dripping onto her face. She nods with tears in her eyes, ice in her heart. Yes, my body, my life, anything. Just let her live. Give her back to me. His face, silver eyes, dagger teeth, and some strange smell come down to look into her as he draws in her scent, long and deep. Her body hums with some terrible power, some aura which touches her flesh and makes it prickle in fear. You should not have come here. Death is a mercy you have denied yourself and your child. You will do as I ask you to do, and then we shall see if you get her back. His mouth does not lose its leer. Like magic he is gone and her daughter with him. Her cries go out into the night, wails of agony and loss which will not stop until she has struggled her way into town. She tells a story about coyotes or wolves, some animal that attacked them in the night. Breast heavy with milk she can no longer use to nourish, she makes herself disappear, and then she waits. Months pass, and then she finds a message scrawled on parchment and wrapped around a raven's claw at her door. Go here, do as I bid, you will know what you must do. This is her life now. Love like blood flows in and out of her heart, and she does as he bids. That first night she met a woman who wept and screamed until there was no air in her lungs. She sobbed as she worked, blood and sinew stuck to her, dried so thick that it was like washing away her own flesh. When it was done, he came with her daughter, and she was allowed to hold her in her arms. She wept as the child cried, unable to suckle milk that would no longer come from her dry breasts, and then came soothing, rocking until they fell asleep, bound in each other's arms. He was gone when she woke, and so was the child, the mark of her soft lips still on her breast. Grief swallowed her up, and for a time she felt that she had lost her mind. But again the message came, long black feather with white lettering now. Go to him, make him bleed. And again she killed to see her daughter. His name was Bill, and he liked how she looked. Long brown hair, bright sapphire blue dress, and bare feet in the desert sand. She almost couldn't do it. She was numb and haunted, but compassion still burned in her. He was kind, he was sweet, and he didn't deserve it. Long black hair, deep brown eyes, and a warrior's heart, like a ghost with his warm red-brown flesh and white teeth and a wide, smiling mouth. She made love to him there in the desert, and then it came to her, the moment to rise, to writhe, and to strike. She used a rock. It came too fast, two hard cracks, and the sound of broken bone which haunted her for days and days. He came with her daughter, no longer a baby, and he watched as she talked to her by moonlight. There were scars, thick pink lines from the claws of his hand which had healed across her left cheek, and the lid of that eye, and there was the girl's quiet watchfulness. She was a toddler now, walking and beginning to mutter syllables that would grow into words. Time had stolen so much already. He did not wait for her to sleep when he took her this time, the head of Bill dangling by its hair and her child's hand in each tight fist as her hand in each tight fist as he ran farther and faster than she could ever hope to follow. Love like blood burns her flesh. Still she yearns for that piece of herself which dwells in her daughter, the piece that means she will go on. She's still my baby. Months pass, so many that she begins to fear she would never see her again. She starts to scour every corner of her apartment, every nook of her car, and the sparse little area around her door at the cheap little hotel. Still nothing comes. She could see her little face in the dark, the pink scars, the expressionless face, and her watchful eyes. She knows without thinking too deeply that he's made her like this. She wonders what happens in the long spans during which she can only wait for instructions, how life is for her in the desert with the beast man. What will her future hold? Finally, when she feels as if she might die, a message comes. In the desert, by the moon, prepare to do my working. Torn hide with streaks of some natural paint spelling out the words. Deep breaths as the pain comes, memory spinning at its thread. She stands in the desert, the light of the full moon coming down, her heart in her throat. All is shadows, the sound of wind over the sand, coyotes and nightbirds crying in the night. He comes to her wearing a familiar face, silver coin eyes and cunning mouth too close for her to see anything else. He speaks a few strange words, his hands wrapped around her face, thumbs pressed to either side of her eyes, and she can feel him slip inside her skin, making it tight and swollen with invasion before she winks out, gone. Her eyes open to wide sky and open desert, starlight and the moon on rock. Muscles burning, she writhes and shudders on the ground, groaning and inarticulate, nude and painted in blood. Pain, her body is a crushing knot, and then there is the release. Motionless, she waits as he looks down on her, smug smile and poisoned mouth. Her face rebels against her commands, struggles to push out the word, "What did you do to me?" Those teeth and silver coin eyes, big and glowing like twin moons in jagged rock against the sky. A skull man, he leers. Anything. Fear looms, swallows her up and takes her away. Silence, emptiness are a mercy, and then she wakes. Her daughter standing over her, watchful, detached. Shelby? Her name, spoken after so many years, feels strange in her mouth and garners no response from the girl, who was too small to know her name, her past. Mama's here, baby. You're getting so big now. She can't move. Her body's overtaxed and unwilling. She aches to embrace her, struggles to nudge a single arm to the left and the right in infinitesimal movements. Baby, come to me. Let me see you close. Shelby pauses. She must be 3 now. Sturdy and strong, caked with dirt, and her hair wild, clad in fur and feathers. She kneels, slips to her side, and presses herself to her mother. Lays her head on her one breast. She smells her skin warm and sweet against her own, slightly sour from the dirt. Tears come unbidden. I love you, I'll always come, and one day I will take you back. I will never give up. Her eyes slip closed as she savors the closeness, the proof of her efforts wrapped tight in her own skin. Soft, small breaths slip from her in time. Shelby sleeping, comforted. Hours pass, dawn begins to come, and she falls asleep, at last giving in to the agony and exhaustion. When she rises, her body responds with pain, but it is once more her own. She slips from the rocks and the desert, walks home naked and alone to her car, and in time finds her way home. Love like blood pools, forms a bruise on her soul. I can endure, I will see this through. Years pass, the bargain remains. She gives and he takes. Silver coin eyes haunt her every moment, but never as deeply as Shelby's eyes, gone hollow and knowing. Faces gather in her thoughts, so many visions of madness and blood. She watches her daughter grow in fits and starts. There is never any certainty of their meeting, so much time passes in between. Nothing matters but her, nothing stays but her memories and the briefest of attachment, proof that she hasn't forgotten her mother. She lives on in frequent embraces, gentle kisses, and her daughter's body pressed close to hers. She is starving, haggard, and flailing in the darkness. Still she keeps her promise. Anything, always and forever. Anything to keep her, anything to save her life. Shelby is 7 now, then 10, then 13. She is her lifeline, her hope. It's amazing what you can live through, what she has seen and done. So many deaths, so many bodies, and so many unknown nights she would never get back. He wears her like a coat, a dog for his bidding. She used to weep when they died. She used to remember their names. Now they've faded like ghosts in the dark. She knows his presence, whether he comes as coyote, owl, rabbit, horse, or man. She sees his painted black face, feels his power through her skin, and still she comes at his call. She has no other choice. Love, like blood, requires sacrifice. Her body quivers, agony blossoms, rolling her eyes back and back, her jaw locked wide and screaming. Still she dreams, still she hopes. For you, always for you, my angel. He no longer needs to use physical messages. His voice speaks in her mind, just inside her right ear, beyond the drum. Come, go back to the place where blood was spilt and a child spared. Come to claim your due. 15 years later, the night is dark, the stars as bright, and her heart beating like a drum in her chest. Will she come? Will I finally have my daughter? She weeps, her body gaunt, her eyes hollow, and her senses attuned to the night. Exhaustion has begun to be overwhelming now. She remembers blood. A fine mist which goes deep into her lungs, over her skin, and through the air. She remembers a desert at dusk, the sky indigo blue and the fire bright, so bright that she can see everything. She remembers the small writhing body caught in the clawed hand, bleeding. Certainty grows in her thoughts. No, it could never be so easy. A cry comes from the desert like some bird of prey, but strange, not quite right. It's him. Her shoulders straighten, she hardens her features, waiting. Without warning, his face is pressed close to hers, his eyes so very close, gleaming. I told you that death was a mercy and that you would suffer. I gave you what you wanted. I gave you everything you asked for. Where is my daughter? His lips peel back from his mouth as he leers, his eyes turned up and his head cocked to one side, watching. We struck a bargain, he hissed. You offered anything, and I claimed what I wanted. Her eyes are empty hollows, the brows knotted in confusion and despair. What? Laughter rings through the night, a crow cackling from his throat, and then a howl, long and melodious. She comes at his call, just starting to grow into her father's height, her head held low, her feet quick and light on the sand. She remembers a baby warm in her arms. She remembers tears and the soothing sensation of her mouth pressed to her breast, suckling and content. Small feet walking around a fire, watching and waiting. She remembers a desert sky lit up with stars, immobile with her little body pressed tight to hers, dreaming. Kisses, huddled embraces, brief words, tears, and the long terrible silences between. She watches her grow, and the hollow sadness of her eyes with her. No. Her daughter comes to her across the sand with the wind in her long brown hair and a dagger clutched tight in her fist. Anything. His teeth white daggers and his eyes, bright silver coins in a midnight face, loom and then blot out the sky. Soon she stretched out on the rock, her body laid bare and immobile. Words are spoken, a tongue she will never speak, but which her daughter has come to know. The dagger enters her low, near the scar from Shelby's birth, slips up like a zipper opening her body to the air. Agony blossoms. Gasping with her eyes thrown up into her head. Shock, the smell of her own blood and organs. Shit, urine, and vital things within. Anything, take me, take whatever you want, but let her live. Her jaw locked wide and screaming. Still she dreams, still she hopes. For you, always for you, my angel. She remembers blood. A fine mist which goes deep in her lungs, over her skin and through the air. She remembers a desert at dusk, the sky indigo blue and the fire bright, so bright that she can see everything. She remembers death, loss, and running. She remembers the small writhing body caught in one clawed hand, bleeding. Small hands reach inside of her, cut through viscera, and reach high under the ribs and to the right. Love, like blood, flows. A breath, another. A beat, another. A howl, loud and full of pride. Nimble fingers grasp her heart, pull it free and up to her small mouth. Tears slip down her face as she takes the first bite. Agony and then release.